Hello, good morning. I'm Matt Addison. David Lynch back with me today. We'll talk through a few topics for you this morning, starting off with some Marco Asensio transfer rumours. But if you've got any questions for us, do stick them into the comments section. I'll try and get to as many of those as I can as we go through over the next sort of 10, 12 minutes or so. But let's start with Marco Asensio, David. It's probably one of those that falls into the highly unlikely category for Liverpool, but I suppose the element of it that I can believe is that he might have been offered to Liverpool. I suppose their reaction and my reaction to that would probably just be, no thanks.
Yeah, maybe a player they might have been interested in a few years back, and maybe tracked a while ago. But yeah, I think in recent years he's had serious injury problems, hasn't he? Struggled to sort of stay fit and not really sort of fulfilled the potential he showed a few years back, and yeah, maybe looking for a move away from Real Madrid, and it always maybe helps to put Liverpool's name out there, but yeah, not one you could really see because of that injury record, and not really sort of a Jurgen Klopp sort of type of player, I think. So yeah, not really one that I think that Liverpool, if they were offered him, would bite on. Though to be honest, I don't think they're a sort of club either who would maybe go for a player who was offered to them as well either. It's Liverpool have very sort of specific targets, don't they? And they don't tend to go for whoever's out there. Maybe that's sort of more of a Manchester United thing at the moment with the way they're run.
Yeah, I can certainly imagine they might well be offered quite a few players in the next few weeks. They certainly need one or two. But I suppose the other sort of element to it, really, I wrote something yesterday around Liverpool looking a little bit light in forward areas at the moment. There's the obvious conversation of the midfield at the moment as well. I suppose the one thing that you would say about Asensio is that he can play a couple of those positions. It probably wouldn't be the worst thing to have someone else in those areas, but obviously with the caveat that Liverpool would only do that if they thought it was the right player, and clearly Marco Asensio is probably not one that would be in that specific category either.
No, exactly, but I think you're right about looking light in forward areas. I think it's something we sort of spoke about over the summer, really, in terms of what Liverpool were losing there, and then obviously you get an injury to Diogo Jota, and obviously Firmino missed the last game, and Darwin Núñez suspended now, and you do start to look very light there, obviously. To lose Minamino and Origi, who made big contributions last season and have made big contributions in recent seasons, it's going to make things difficult. And Liverpool, we said they were looking to the likes of Fabio Carvalho to step up and really fill that void. And it's still early days for him at the moment, for Carvalho in particular, and Elliott's been used more as a midfielder. So yeah, they can look a little bit light, but the hope is that when Diogo Jota comes back from that injury, that you can get a consistent run of games out of him, and that Núñez doesn't make a habit of picking up suspensions for headbutting players, and then hopefully things will look a little bit better in the forward areas.
Yeah, Roberto Firmino's injury isn't particularly extensive either, I don't think. So hopefully he can be back for next week and Liverpool can have one or two more options. But let's come to a couple of your comments then. We're going to have a couple of a chat, I should say, about a couple of loan players as well in just a second. But Bruce here saying that, this reminds him of the centre-back situation a couple of seasons ago. I'm not sure whether I 100% agree with that, to be honest. I don't think it's quite that drastic just yet. I mean, it's not too far away, I admit. But what are your thoughts on that? Is there any similarities, or is it maybe not quite so bad just yet?
I would say it's not looking too terrible for Liverpool just at the moment, because none of these injuries that they've got are real long-term ones. I think the longest injury they've probably got of all of that group of players who are out is Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain with that hamstring injury. But even so, he's going to be back not too far down the line, and again, not really an absolutely crucial player. And they're not, in terms of numbers, certainly in midfield, they're not that light. It's more that there's just a bit of a build-up of injuries, but like I say, the short-term ones, and I think it's not. I think if any of those injuries that they've got, or a couple of those have been long-term ones, then Liverpool would look to dip into the market. But I think Klopp would argue that he's going to end up with a surplus of players if he gets into the market now. He does have a lot in terms of numbers. They've just been kind of unlucky, really. He mentioned it himself, and he said, in terms of it felt like they had a witch in the building. You feel like they had a little bit of a curse on them recently. So, you just need a couple of those back to start to ease things. And hopefully that happens soon, because one of the big things about when you do have injuries is that it does tend to cause other injuries. Núñez is suspension is a bit of a problem because, you know, with Jota not being there at the moment and Firmino just coming back from a little injury, you know, even though he's left out sort of a precautionary, you know, it starts to put pressure on the players who are available in terms of their minutes, and you can't really make use of the 5 subs as much as you'd like to because you don't have the options there to change things. So, you know, that can lead to further injury. So you do hope that sort of clears up pretty quickly if possible. But yeah, we're not quite in that situation with the centre-back crisis just yet, because to lose, what was it, the 3 starting centre-backs right near the start of the season for the entirety of the season was pretty disastrous, and hopefully we don't have something similar to that this season.
Yeah, still a few players available in midfield, at least for the time being. Hopefully that does stay the case. 1 or 2 on the way back as well. Just one of the other comments before we move on around the bench. There's a couple of people getting in touch around that. I mean, I suppose there's 2 ways of looking at it, isn't there? There's maybe the element of there's not much depth, and probably the other element of, well, Stefan Bajcetic and Bobby Clark, and you do want to give 1 or 2 options, you know, younger options, a chance to be in the matchday squad. That's probably no bad thing, but I suppose it's just been exacerbated a little bit by the 5 subs this season. Liverpool have got the option now to have the 5 subs when probably it would have suited them better last year when they actually had those players available.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, looked at Liverpool's squad last season. I think it was the strongest it had ever been under Jurgen Klopp. It doesn't quite look that way at the moment just because of these injuries that built up, and I think that was something you sort of feared when they went 1-0 down to Crystal Palace. As you were looking at the bench, and because of those injuries, it didn't look as strong as it has been in the past. But, you know, as I say, you know, hopefully these injuries are short term or more on the short term side, and that things will start to recover pretty quickly in terms of having game changing options off the bench, because, you know, it is a big part of games, and it is a big part of keeping other players in the squad fit and the squad fit in general. You don't want to be in this situation all season where you just bring in players back and you start to get more injury problems, because, you know, it just makes things more and more difficult for you. And it's a long and difficult season, you know, particularly this one quite compressed in this part of the season. I think this is really, they could do with getting, you know, a big chunk of players back soon, because, you know, that it's just game after game after game going into the World Cup, and pretty much the same when they get back as well. So, you know, it's going to really test the squad. So they really do need things to sort of start recovering quite quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks on that front. But not too many other players being linked with Liverpool at the moment. So I thought we'd have a little bit of a chat about a couple of the lads that are out on loan. A couple of decent performances by all accounts last night. The first one for Conor Bradley. He scored the only goal in a 1-0 win for Bolton. Seems to be going really, really well there for him. I think it's 2 goals, 2 assists in 5 games from right back, which seems like a brilliant start for him.
Yeah, the sort of Trent Alexander-Arnold-esque numbers as well, which is really encouraging in terms of just shows that Liverpool are preparing players that have sort of their sort of style of play. The players that are coming through the academy, you know, you could, even if they don't quite reach the level Liverpool are at, they're sort of made for that sort of style of football. So it's, you know, really, really encouraging. I think, you know, I watched the highlights from Nottingham Forest's game over the weekend, actually, just last night, and just to see Nico Williams' performance. And I thought, you know, just really shows you there that there's a bit of a sort of a production line going of players that sort of really fit the bill. And even if they don't quite make the grade at Liverpool, and Conor Bradley will look at things and think, well, Trent Alexander-Arnold's going to be around for a long time. It's a real moneymaker, the academy, and you're making players that can have a really good career in the game. So it works, you know, both for the player and for the club as well. And yeah, to see Conor Bradley going so well at Bolton there is really encouraging. And yeah, he just seems to sort of really take into it really well in terms of his attacking output. I'm not quite sure how he's getting on defensively. I do keep seeing these clips on social media, the stuff he's doing going forward. So yeah, he couldn't be doing much more in terms of impressing on his loan spell. And yeah, long may it continue.
Yeah, kept a clean sheet last night at least, so must have been okay in that regard. But yeah, whether or not he has a future at Liverpool, time will tell. But clearly, he's got a future somewhere in the English pyramid, which is excellent news. James Balagizi, as well as the other one I wanted to have a chat about. Crawley lost actually late last night against Northampton 3-2, but the 2 goals for Crawley scored by James Balagizi, who, as far as I'm aware, has played a kind of more withdrawn defensive role for couple of these matches. Whether he was doing that last night when he scored 2 goals, I'm not too sure, but again, seems to be settling in quite well. I was quite surprised he went quite as low as League Two, but if you're getting the minutes, you're getting the goals and the performances, it's certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I was kind of pleased to see him go out. I think I'd agree with that. I was slightly surprised in terms of the level he ended up at, but I think maybe going down just a touch lower than you expect is something that would maybe guarantee him games, and I think he's probably needed that. I think he's someone at academy level who maybe in recently sort of there's serious high hopes around him, but I think sort of he's needed that consistent run of games now, and he's had a couple of injury problems or little issues with his form, and I think to go out and know that he's going to play consistently at professional level is going to be really good for him. And again, another one who seems to be impressing. It might not be the highest level he could possibly be playing at, but he's a very young player and in a position of real responsibility to be doing well and impressing. It's good for Liverpool and really good for him. So hopefully he can really keep that up, because there's a big debate about Liverpool's midfield. So if they were ever going to pull someone from their academy who could make the grade, then that would be a nice position to do it in.
Yeah, fingers crossed, as you say, he can stay fit. I think he was one of those that was down to go on the senior pre-season tour last summer, but then I think broke his arm and missed out on that. And maybe hasn't quite had the look at certain points in his career that he would have wanted. But yeah, fingers crossed that sort of form that he showed last night can continue, and hopefully for Conor Bradley as well. But I think we'll leave it there. I think that'll just about do us for this morning. Plenty more content throughout the week for you, including these morning streams. So if you have enjoyed watching and commenting along, then do join us every weekday at the same time here on the Blood Red YouTube channel and on Liverpool.com's Facebook as well. But for now, from myself, Matt Addison, and from David Lynch, thanks for watching. We'll catch you very soon.